What is going on, everybody? If you are in the chat and you're just joining us, we are doing our TGIF stream. I've really enjoyed doing these streams lately, so I wanted to make sure I start doing them more often. We're going to probably we already do the garden party every Wednesday, sometimes Thursdays. Like this next week, it'll be on Thursday. But we're going to start doing live streams on YouTube and Facebook probably every Monday and Friday. I like the Friday because I'm off every other Friday. So sometimes I can do them in the morning, sometimes I'll do them in the evening. But Monday night is kind of like a good night to like recap the weekend. And like a lot of y'all, I work 40 hours a week, and so I get a lot of my gardening and stuff done on the weekends. So Friday night is a good time to recap what all happened during the week and talk about what we're going to get done during the weekend. So I guess first off, we'll talk about the Nursery and Landscape Association expo I was just at. That was such a cool experience. I was at the expo in San Antonio all last weekend. And if y'all can hear me okay, let me know in the chat. This is the first time we are live on Facebook and YouTube for the first time using new software. So if you can't hear me like very well, let me know down in the chat. If you have any gardening questions, drop them down below and we'll try to get to them. We're going to go for about an hour. We'll go 67. So I was at the Nursery and Landscape Expo all weekend, last weekend, left we left the house here in Houston at 3:00 in the morning and drove to San Antonio. I didn't realize how far San Antonio was from Houston until like the night before when I Googled, not the night before, like a couple nights before. I was like, 3.5 hours isn't that bad, but at 3:00 in the morning, it's pretty rough. So me and my wife drove to San Antonio, and we had to be there by 7. So it was right there downtown on the Riverwalk, and it had a huge convention center with 3 of the halls taken up. And it was, they must have had over 400 something vendors there. And basically it was get there and get busy. They had ribbon cutting ceremonies, and they brought me in to do all the social media for them. And so I had 2 phones of my own plus one of their phones that I was just getting content nonstop. And if y'all have seen the Nursery Landscape Expo social media page and my page, you've seen there's a lot of content. It was my first expo, and it was a blast. I just want to say thank you to all the TNLA volunteers, and especially Kim, and for being so welcoming and bringing us in. And we just had a blast. I got to finally meet Vikram, the plant prof. If you don't already follow the plant prof, Vikram Baliga, he's a horticulture professor. I don't know what the right way to say it, but he's the horticulture professor up there at Texas Tech in Lubbock, and he does social media as the plant prof, and he does a lot of plant and gardening content. And we finally got to meet. He's been on the Garden Party podcast a bunch of times. So it's cool to finally meet him. A bunch of people I knew were there, and it was just really cool. The way I described it to some of my buddies was, I'm always the weird person who's talking about plants and my garden and stuff. And like, we'll be out to dinner and I'm showing someone a picture of my garden when they're showing me a picture of their kids. And I always feel like a weirdo. And so for once I was at a place where everybody at the table was showing off pictures of their garden at the dinner table, which was a unique experience. So if you ever get the chance to go to like a nursery expo or like a gardening expo, it's so much fun. It's so much fun if you're. Did I go out? Did I go out and come back in? I don't know what that was. But yeah, no, I had a great time. San Antonio was awesome. It was hot. It's hot here in Houston. It's hot in San Antonio too. It was nuts. We were on the Riverwalk, and we decided to meet up for dinner, and we thought about Ubering, and I ended up looking up on Google Maps, like how far it was on the Riverwalk. And it was like a 12-minute walk, and 12 minutes when it's like 115 degrees right on the Riverwalk where there's like 100% humidity was miserable. I think we got to the restaurant, the Iron Cactus, and we were all just soaking wet, soaking wet. It was nuts. But we had a really good time. So San Antonio was great. Got back on Saturday, was Saturday afternoon. Um, Tried to get some stuff done around the house. Got to mow, weed eat, all that stuff. It seems like now, like right now, this is like the time of year where you just can't mow often enough. I've been cutting my yard every single week, and it's just so hot. So if you're out there and you're working in the garden this weekend, doing anything, make sure you're hydrated. A lot of people remember to drink water, but they don't remember to drink like electrolytes. Take electrolytes. You need like, maybe not Gatorade because there's so much sugar in it, but they make stuff like Liquid IV that I really, really like. Liquid IV, and I also have some stuff called like Pickle Juice Sport. And that stuff is awesome. It's basically pickle juice, but it's like not as potent, as like drinking like straight pickle juice, and all the vinegar and salt and stuff like is supposed to help with like cramps. I don't know about y'all, but I get heat cramps really, really, really bad. Um, so I always try to make sure I take, some kind of electrolyte along with my water. Any tips on keeping the grass green in this heat? Well, I did something in the spring that I don't normally do. I'm the person, like, so whenever we moved into this house about 6 or 7 years ago, it was my first house, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and just do all this stuff that I've seen my dad do over the years. You're putting out Scots, summer harvest or summer whatever. There's a million different things to put out. And it seemed like the more I put in the yard, the worse it looked, the worse it looked. Um, so I just kind of stopped altogether, stopped doing anything to my yard, and it looked okay. I had a lot of weeds. And this year I did something different. I went with uh, Skip Richter from the Garden Line has a schedule, and you can either do it with like Nitrophos, or you can do it with like Nelson's, or you can do it with Microlife, however you want to do it. Uh, and I followed what to do like in February, or no, it was actually April. It was April, and I did the Nelson's. It's called Bruce's Brew, I believe. Bruce's Brew, I want to say, and what it is like it's like compost. It's like a compost that's like in pellet form, and when I put it out in the yard, um, it doesn't really matter if it's like hot. Like I think you could put it out now because it is not super high in nitrogen, so it's not going to burn the grass. Let me look that up. Skip Richter has a really good schedule for this, and if y'all know who Skip Richter is, he's a legend here in the Houston area. Um, he is a legend. He does the Garden Line every Saturday morning and Sunday morning, and I'm going to pull that schedule up right here, and I will put a link. It's actually gardeningwithskip.com. So if you look at gardeningwithskip.com, I will go ahead and share this as well. So Skip is a really good dude. Really good guy. We'll go ahead and click on this, and I will share my screen momentarily. So he's got a schedule right here. Let's see. I will show y'all what it looks like. So this is Skip Richter's lawn care schedule. And so we're in August. And so it basically says don't do a whole lot, but right now you want to mow frequently with a sharp blade to build turf density, remove no more than 1/3 of grass blades with each mowing, return clippings to the lawn. That is the number one thing he told me whenever we were talking about yards, because I'm just terrible with yards for the most part until I started following something like this. Was that a lot of times what people do is they end up taking out the most important thing they could, is leaving like the clippings in the yard. Like leave the clippings in the yard. Don't bag them. Don't put them in the trash. Don't put them in your compost. Just put them back into the yard. And what's funny is I battery powered mower, and let's see if I can find it. I got a battery powered mower, and I thought it had this bag on the back. It had a bag, and had a bag, and I thought like I didn't have the option to like let the clippings just go into the yard. And then one day I went out there and I started mowing, and I mowed almost like halfway through my front yard, uh, and realized I didn't have the bag attached. And apparently, if the bag's not attached, because it doesn't have a side chute, on the mower, um, if the bag's not attached, it'll just mulch it into the yard. So it kind of worked out. So now I don't use the bag, but go to gardeningwithskip.com. I would recommend him if you're in the Houston area, and you can even use that in the San Antonio area. What's going on, Enoch? We got Enoch in the house tonight. Another reason to have worm farms and collect castings for vermicompost tea that you can spray on your lawn. Yeah, I've been wanting to do like some kind of vermicomposting setup. I just don't have the space for it. I know people you can do it like I've seen where they do it like a 50-gallon barrels, and they like raise them up, and you can let the rain catch in there, and then you can just put a bucket to collect on the bottom. I know a person who has like a bathtub that's full of like worms, and they open like the drain in the bottom and just fill up the worm casting tea. But it's also pretty easy to get compost tea if you want to pay for it. It's not the cheapest, but I mean, fertilizer in general is not super cheap. But there are some things you can do right now. Like I don't cut my yard as low as I was cutting it like in the early spring. I've kind of been leaving it a little bit higher. But it's just been getting tough with it being so hot. And I've got some spots in my yard where it is dry and it's getting a little bit brown. It's getting a little bit brown, and that's kind of the downfall of having St. Augustine. St. Augustine here in the Houston area, it's fine if you've got some shade. Like I've got 2 oak trees in my yard, and in the spots where it gets shade, I've got good grass. But in the spot that doesn't really get much shade at all, you can see where it's just getting burned up by the sun. And if I had Bermuda grass, it'd be a little bit different. Bermuda can handle the full sun. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a big grass guy. In the backyard, my grass looks amazing because I'm constantly, fertilizing and watering my raised beds and my pots. I'm using liquid fertilizer. And so that water and all the fertilizer and all the nutrients are leaching out from the pots and the raised beds into the grass. So if you come in my backyard, which you're not allowed to come in my backyard, anybody, unless I give permission. But in my backyard, you can see like a trail that goes all the way around my yard where my sprinklers are at. And you can see that it's greener right around there because, all the nutrients when I water are coming out of the pot. There's just gravity. So, but yeah, this week has been super hot, getting back to a crazy schedule. I spent a better part of an entire day attaching my camper top on my truck. I posted the video Sunday night of me putting that wild top on the truck. The reason I got that camper top, I was looking for camper tops for my truck. I just got a new truck back in April, and I wanted a camper top because when I transport plants in the back, a lot of the trees and the plants I had were getting whipped by the wind when I was driving. They're just like, show up and they don't have any leaves on them. So I was looking for a camper top for the back of my truck, and man, those fiberglass ones are really expensive. I mean, you're looking at maybe anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000, and then sometimes you have to get them color matched to your truck and painted and everything. So I wanted to find a good option, and that wild top was like, I think $1,200 for my truck. And if I don't like it, I can pop it up and open it and everything. So it's a really good option, but I really like it so far. But yeah, that's the reason I did that. And then getting back to work this week was kind of hard after having like 4 days off. And now we're getting to Friday and just ready to get some projects done this week. We did have Jason from Cog Hill on the garden party on Wednesday. It is always so much fun to get him on because obviously most of y'all probably know who Jason from Cog Hill Farm is. Super successful YouTuber. He has a 40-acre homestead in Alabama where he's got every kind of chicken under the sun that you can think of. He's got emus. I don't think we even talked about the emus in the podcast. It might be the first time we didn't talk about emus. big old potbelly pigs and goats and all kinds of crazy stuff. But he's a really good dude out of Alabama. He's a really good dude out of Alabama. I don't know is my internet cutting out. What is going on? Am I not connected to the right internet? My my whatchamacallit, my last time I had issues with the internet, there's two routers in my house, and I guess we had the power flickers in my neighborhood a lot because we got a lot of new houses. And so I don't know why, but like whenever my computer resets, it goes to the router that's furthest away instead of making the default one, the one in the living room, which is closer. So I don't know. That drives me nuts though. Um, Blue Sage, I'm going to try and landscape my front yard 100% Texas native plants. Where is the best place to start? That is a great question. I actually met one of the best parts about going to that nursery and landscape expo is that I met a ton of nursery people. And I don't know if it has always been the case or not, but there is a lot of nurseries that specialize in native Texas plants. So I don't know what area you're in, but if you look up in your area, I don't know if you're in Austin, San Antonio, Houston. In Houston, I would look for Buchanan's. Buchanan specializes in mostly in native plants. There's also pretty much every nursery now, including like Enchanted Garden, Enchanted Forest. They're going to have a native Texas area. I think even Jimbo's over in Alvin, they've got a native Texas plant section where they, kind of let you know. But you can do a lot of stuff native. There I would wait till the fall. I would wait till the fall to maybe get to like actually planting them. Native Texas plants are super hardy in the heat, and in the winter they're going to come back. But planting them right now is going to be kind of a shock to the system for them. So if you wait till like the fall, like maybe at the end of September, that's probably when I would start, replacing like non-natives with natives. You got like your Esperanzas, your Texas Sages. I've been really moving towards a lot of native Texas plants as well. There was one Virginia creepers. I forget. Is it the rain? Someone's always asking me about a creeper. It's some plants. It's either the Rangoon creeper or the Virginia creeper. I don't think the Rangoon creeper is the native one, but I think the Virginia creeper is a native one. But yeah, no, I love native plants, and I've incorporated more of them into my backyard, into the garden, because it's nice not to have to worry about certain plants. Like there's certain plants like my desert roses, my plumerias, you have to worry about with the freeze and the drought and everything. So I've got my Turk's cap, my Esperanza, my what do you call it, the Lone Star Rose, the Texas Rose, Texas hibiscus. That's it. Oh, west of Houston. Okay. Yeah, I would go check out Buchanan's, and then Buchanan's really has a lot of native stuff, but also Enchanted Gardens, Enchanted Forest over in Richmond are gonna have a really good selection as well. Yeah, for sure. Even RCW's got a good selection from what I hear. I've never been there. I've seen I've seen their stuff on Instagram and stuff. But like I said, most like bigger nurseries are gonna have like a native Texas plant section now. If they don't have a section, they'll say on the tag like what is native, but it's definitely a good idea. I mean, especially if with the winters we've been having, here in the Houston area, it's a good idea to, if you're going to do your front yard, you don't have to worry about irrigation. If you don't have to worry about, covering stuff up in the wintertime, going native is a perfect option for that, especially for people who like don't necessarily have a green thumb. You can be a plant murderer and, you can have you some native plants and you'll be good. So that's a really good option. My favorites are like, I've been wanting to dig my shrubs up in the front. I saw my neighbor do it and it looked like a nightmare because of the way they're growing. And I would love to replace all my shrubs with like Texas sages. And you want to pay attention to like Texas sage because There will be like dwarf varieties and like a regular variety. Like there's like a Silverado and what is it, White Cloud or something like that. Yeah, there's a bunch of different options for Texas sage that are different heights, and they'll get bushier and taller. Let's see. I got a 3 foot tall plumeria plant. It's planted in a shallow pot. When I repot it, can I plant it can I plant it 6 inch deeper like a tomato? So yes, absolutely you can, Captain Jolly. Uh, Plumerias are really cool. So I was actually having this conversation with the guy yesterday. Like my screen goes black and I don't know what's going on. I just moved to a new software, so we'll see how this goes. But anyway, I've got a 3 foot. So he's got a 3 foot tall plumeria plant. He wants to replant it. Yes. So his dad had given him some plumeria plants, and he wanted to plant them in his flower bed. And I had told him, I was like, that's awesome, because I would totally do that if I didn't have an HOA. If I didn't have an HOA, I'd have all kinds of stuff growing in my front yard. I'd probably have raised beds in my front yard because it gets really nice morning sun and afternoon shade. So, but you can put that plumeria as deep as you want to go. You can plant it as deep as you want to go, uh, and it'll grow roots. So like if you're worried about it like not being anchored deep enough, that it's like a heavy dude, like a heavy one on top, you can plant it as deep as you want. Wherever it touches soil, it's going to grow roots. What's really cool is if you have the option to put them in the ground and you want to put them in the ground, something you can do is you can just pull them up in the winter time. You know, before our first freeze, just pull them up, and most people hang them upside down. They'll set them upside down in the garage if your garage is insulated, because they're not cold tolerant at all. Yeah, it's I know some people like that, and they definitely plant their soil, the natives. If you are someone who does not have a green thumb, you definitely want to maybe go with a native plant, something that's really easy to keep alive. Yeah, plumerias root really easily, and plumerias have really shallow roots too. So it's funny because I've got some that I need to repot. The ones that I grew from seed about a year and a half ago are in, uh, I'd say about 1 gallon pots, and they're starting to get huge. And so I need to this. That's gonna be one of the things I do this weekend. I'm gonna repot some plumerias, and I'll make sure to capture that all on video. I really appreciate everybody who follows me on Instagram, YouTube, and all that for enjoying the last video. It really is awesome. Whenever I haven't posted anything besides like lives in like a month, and I think the Adenium video that is posted this morning is like over 200 views, which is for me that's awesome. I don't I don't I appreciate it. So I have a lot of fun making videos, and that video was actually from like 2 weeks ago, about 2 weeks after the hurricane. We're not that far removed from Hurricane Beryl, which was like July 4th weekend. So about a month. Yeah. So I think I did it a month after Hurricane Beryl. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's been so crazy. It's been super dry since Beryl. It hasn't rained much, and it's been really, really hot. Really hot. We had a very mild spring. We were very spoiled this year here in the Houston area because we had such a mild spring. We had such a mild spring, and then the hurricane hit, and then after that, it was just hot. It's hot, 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 and it's going to be like this for probably another month or so, which is going to be fine because I'm going to get a break. We were talking about Cog Hill over in Alabama earlier, and I'll actually be driving to Alabama in the middle of September. I'll be leaving to go to they call it the Great Fall Garden Fest. And if you're in the Alabama area, I'll be driving in to go hang out with them. And it's a big YouTube meetup and at a nursery called Petals from the Past. It's like an antique rose, like Mecca over there in, Alabama. So I'm looking forward to that, meeting some friends from YouTube and stuff like that. It's going to be a really good time. But it's going to be a drive. If I thought if the drive from San Antonio was bad, the drive to Alabama was going to be worse. I think it's like 11 hours. I will probably end up staying the night. I'll probably end up stopping halfway because I just don't want to be dead, the next day. That morning this past weekend when I drove to San Antonio on Thursday morning, After 3.5 hours of driving, I got there and I was dead. I was like so dead Thursday morning. So I don't know if I want to drive 11 hours and then have a YouTube meetup. I might just fall asleep. But yeah, it's the hottest time of the year, and something you can do for your plants that I'm going to be doing this weekend is put out mulch. You may not want to go digging up your flower beds or your raised beds, but you can apply some mulch. Especially, I've been working with a company called Living Earth Soils, and they have a really cool product. It's called Houston Mulch, and they have a contract with the city of Houston where they actually collect whenever people put out branches or brush from their yard. They pick it up like once a month or so, and when it gets picked up, it gets taken to the Living Earth facilities, and they grind it up, turn it into mulch, and sell it back to the people of Houston. So it's Houston Mulch. Yeah, it's by Houston for Houston. It's pretty neat. So I've got some of that. We're going to be putting out some mulch. It's going to help when it's really hot, to shade some of the root structure. If you got, if it's a tree or a plant that needs a little bit of, help. And then it also holds some moisture as well. Whenever you're watering, if you're getting those mulch wet, it's going to cool down the roots and kind of help stuff out. So I've got some figs and I've got some probably on my oak trees. I need to put another layer of mulch. Mulch is always a good idea, especially I've had issues with mulch where I brought it in from God knows where. I got it from Lowe's or Home Depot, and I don't know where the mulch came from, but I had a pest infestation afterwards with pests that I don't normally deal with. It was called a box elder beetle. It was weird. I've never dealt with that. If you're in the chat and you're having issues with pests, drop it down below, because I thought I had an infestation of white flies. And I give people so much crap for misidentifying pests, and then I go out and I misidentified them. I thought that they were white flies because they were all over my variegated snow queen hibiscus, and they killed one of my hibiscuses. It's dead, completely dead. They killed it. I tried neem oil. I tried everything I could to get rid of those white flies. Well, it turns out they're not white flies at all. They're woolly aphids. They're woolly aphids, which the neem oil and whatever else I was using should have worked, but it's not. And like, if you go to my backyard right now, it looks like it's snowing. Like, not like a heavy snow, but it's just little specks flying around the backyard. And it's like, what is this? And you go look at some of the plants, and it's just they'll be on the plants, and they're aphids. They're called woolly aphids. They're little jerks is what they are, honestly. And yeah, they killed one of my hibiscus plants. I was pretty upset about that, actually. Let's see. Brenda Stevenson, I have 2 small apple trees I need to put in bigger pots. How would I go about doing it? So apple trees, it depends on what size pot they're in now. I would definitely wait to transplant them in the fall. Preferably put them in the ground in the fall. Now, I've grown apples in pots. That's fine. You can definitely do it for a couple of years, but eventually they're probably going to have to go in the ground just because they'll have longer tap roots. But the way I know, I practice gradual up potting. And when I say gradual up potting, it means like, so if I go to the store or nursery and I buy a orange tree and it's in a 3-gallon pot, when I get home, I will pop the pot. I will slide the pot off and see how the roots are doing. And if the roots are looking healthy and they're contained and they're not like popping out the pot, then I'm gonna leave that plant in that pot, or a pot of similar size. And then every year or so, I'm gonna check it and you see if are the roots coming out the bottom or what. So I will go from a 3-gallon pot to a 5-gallon pot. So I'm gonna do gradual up potting. So something like an apple tree that you started from seeds. That's really cool. What I would do is gradually, put them in a slightly bigger pot. So if they're in a 1-gallon, put them in a 2-gallon. They're in a 2-gallon, put them in a 4-gallon. Just gradually up pot them and train them and let those roots grow. But I would wait, if you can, to transplant them because it's so hot. It's so hot. Um, one thing you can, yeah, one thing you can do. Nelson Plant Food makes a product. So this is the only way I would do any kind of transplanting right now, and I've tested it and it works. There's a product called Nelson Plant Food. It's a new product. They sent it out for like R&D. They sent me some like a year or so ago, like last spring, and it's called Genesis. It's Nelson Plant Food Genesis, and what Genesis is a transplant mix, like a transplant softener or fertilizer. It's it is a it takes the stress and the shock away from the plant. So like when you go from that one pot, so you say you got a 1 gallon pot, right? You turn it upside down, pull it out. You got your pot ready for the 4 gallon or whatever. You're gonna dig your hole, like you're gonna plant the tree, and I'm gonna sprinkle some of that Genesis down at the bottom. I'm gonna plant it like I would. Now I'm probably gonna sprinkle a little bit of that Genesis in the top, and then water it really well, and put it in the shade. Put it in the shade because plants is just it. I if you can avoid transplanting right now, avoid transplanting. I don't know why my internet keeps doing that. That I just switched from Riverside to StreamYards, and every once in a while I get the black screen of death. I don't know what's going on. That's gonna be a problem though. I don't like it. Might have to have Phil host it on his internet. I don't know. I can probably figure something out though. Maybe I can run like a landline to my internet. We'll see. We'll make something work though. Hope everyone's having a great Friday evening. If you're just hopping on, drop your garden questions, plant questions down below. Do my best to help y'all out. Um, I had a great week of work. It's funny when you work hard on the weekends, you're almost ready to go back to work, and that's kind of how it was Monday. I was happy to get back to work because I've been working so hard outside of work. Oh, no problem, Brenda. Yeah, like I said, I'll definitely wait to the fall, especially on apple trees. Depending on the apple tree, so the people will start apples from seeds, and I don't know what kind of apple it was, Brenda, but a lot of times, like most apples are grafted. Most apples are grafted. So, like, if it was an Anna or a Fuji or a whatever, that Fuji apple limb was rooted onto like a native apple rootstock. Um, and then we get the fruit at the store. And a lot of times, those seeds that we plant, they will grow into an apple tree. They will grow into an apple tree. Doesn't mean that the apple will do well here in the Houston area. And it also doesn't mean that the apple you get from that tree will be the same as the one you ate. It's very different, but it is cool. No, it's definitely cool to do. Yeah, it's I've asked a lot of questions about stuff like that, and it's weird. That's one thing. I'm not a fan of like desert roses that are grafted. It's a cool thing. So like with desert roses, a lot of times, pretty much everyone you see in like the store is going to be grafted, unless you're specifically looking for an ungrafted desert rose. They'll take a normal, really big, healthy desert rose. They'll chop the top off and they'll graft on a really fancy, exotic looking color. Um, and so if that graft dies, the desert rose will be fine, but it'll just be a normal like pink and white, the generic color. So grafting is a quick technique to kind of get more of the variety that you want. But as far as like producing viable seeds that will give you the same apple you got, I don't know. I don't think it always works out like that. But it's still cool to grow them. I had a buddy who actually grew an avocado like that. He's got an avocado tree, and he grew it from seed. Yeah. Yeah. A buddy who grew an avocado from avocado seeds and or a pit, like they always have those little kits, you can float the avocado pit in like a thing of water and it'll root. And all that cool stuff, which is neat. I mean, it's always cool to do little experiments, especially you got kids. I mean, shoot, have them take the orange seeds or the apple seeds out of their fruit and get them started. It's a cool thing to do, and it's fun. But he had an avocado, and he grew from the pit, and it popped up, and it got big, and it got tall, and over like a 10-year period. But like the avocados he got end up being like these little bitty avocados, and not like the big Haas or whatever. I'm not an avocado person. I'm a texture person. I'm weird about textures, and I don't like the way avocados like feel or taste in my mouth. It's weird. Mm. So I get avocado questions all the time, and I usually refer people to like my buddy Jorge because he loves avocados and he's got quite a few at his place. Yeah, but Arkansas, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, there's I've had questions from people asking about apples and pears, and usually it was I think I told the story before, but I'll tell it again. I was at my stepbrother's place, and he was having like a pool party or something, and this neighbor came over, and he was talking to me, and I was like, oh yeah, I do like backyard gardening videos and give people advice and stuff like that. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, can you come check out my house real quick? And I was like, cool, yeah, no problem. I got a question about my landscaping. So we walked over there, and I guess he had just had his pool re-landscaped, and he pointed out behind the pool, and he had a a couple of trees, like a half dozen trees. And he's like, I have not gotten any fruit. Those trees have been there for like 2 or 3 years. And he's like, I have not gotten any fruit. And I was like, I looked at the bottom, and I could see it was from like Lowe's or Home Depot, or I think it might have been Walmart, honestly. And all the tag said was like apple, pear, plum. It didn't say what variety. It didn't say, uh, it didn't tell you anything hardly. And that's kind of what happens when people go to like big box stores is, they see apple, they see pear, they see plum, and they don't know like what variety it is and know if that variety is going to do well in this area. They don't know if that, most varieties of, plums, peaches, apples prefer, another variety there for cross pollination. So if you only got one tree, if you only got one apple tree, one pear tree, um, you may get an apple, you may get a couple apples, may get a couple pears, but you're always going to get more if you have multiple varieties. And when you go to like a mom and pop, smaller nursery with people who actually have expertise, because I mean, you go to Home Depot and ask, hey, which orange tree or which apple tree does better in this area? They're going to be like, I don't know. If you go to Jorge, he's going to show you, hey, we looked on the Texas Department of Agriculture website, and like these are the varieties that do really well this right here in this area. I know the guy who does the grafting, over there at Brazos Citrus and Brazos, nursery and everything. So when you go to places like that, you are going to learn more about your fruit and about how to plant them, where to plant them, when to plant them. That's why we started doing these meetups. We started doing like the meetups in the spring and the fall. I need to lock one in. I need to lock one over Jorge's. But that's why we started doing that, is so, people could show up. We could walk around the nursery, do a tour, stop where people wanted to ask questions, and, find out what they wanted to plant, when they wanted to plant, and how to plant them, Avocado trees have to be grafted from a producing tree to bear decent avocados. Yep, that's what I've been told. That's what I'm saying. He had grown one from seed, and it just was not great. It produced little. A lot of times, if you grow an avocado from seed or pit, it'll produce an avocado, but it might be a little bitty. It's just like they call some pomegranates. Like some pomegranates are uh, decorative pomegranates or ornamental pomegranates. They still produce a pomegranate and you can eat it, but it's just not a whole lot of meat on it, and it's just not, it's edible still, but it's not a whole lot of meat. It's not really worth it, you know? So yeah, avocados are different. My buddy was even saying he has some cold hardy varieties over at his place at Jorge's. Hidden Gardens. That's where he's at. Alvin, Texas. Hope everyone's having a great Friday night. It is is it my dog barking? Mm. Yeah, met a lot of people. I even saw I saw Skip Richter at the meet at the expo this past weekend. I saw I saw Luis from Heirloom Soils. I saw a lot of cool people. It's always fun, you know. I do the social media stuff. I do the podcast, and I've had a lot of people on. And I I got there and I didn't realize like not everybody I know knows each other. And so I was like doing introductions between there. It was kind of weird. I didn't think about it like that. I just assumed that if they knew me, they probably knew everybody. So it was weird, but had a good time. You know that nursery and landscape association does a really good job. That's a big organization, and they do a lot of good work in the community in certifying and training like nursery and landscape professionals. It's a really cool deal. And so I hope I get to go back and do another event or another expo. I know they do that event every year. I think next year it'll be in San Antonio too, and then the year after that it'll be in Dallas. I need to bring it to Houston, so I ain't gotta drive this far. Oh my goodness. So, but the next big trip, see all my events. I usually post all my events on Facebook, so I should have most of this stuff posted. But I got quite my fall is filling up pretty quick. I've got quite a few events. So I'll be in Alabama on September 14th, and then Figtoberfest. We're actually having Phil from Phil's Figs. He's going to be here. October 3rd is when he's flying in, that Thursday. That Friday, we're going to Moody Gardens. I talked to my friend Danita over at Moody Gardens and asked about getting a tour at Moody Gardens in Galveston. And so that's going to be so much fun. We're going to go do a tour of Pyramid in Galveston at Moody Gardens. That's going to be so much fun. And I posted a flyer on my Instagram and Facebook. So if anybody wants to come, they're more than welcome. We're going to work on a group rate, so it's cheaper for everybody in our party to come. But I'm really looking forward to that. And then October, I'm going to be at Channing Forest again doing a winter gardening class. And then October 19th, we're going to do Jimbo's Nursery. That's going to be a garden class as well. And we're going to have some other stuff popping up here and there. I do need to lock in a date to go hang out at Jorge's place and do a meetup over there. We always have so much fun. I'll always do stuff over there. I watched Jason and Brooke from Cog Hill, and I love them. Yeah, I got started watching them quite a while ago, like even before the pandemic and stuff. It was so much fun watching them at their old place and then evolving and moving out to their new place. And ever since I started reaching out to him and communicating with him, he's always been super nice to me. If you're not following Cog Hill Farms, I mean, I assume everybody is. I mean, but like he's such a good dude. His family's great. I can't wait to meet him in person. It's so weird meeting people online and talking to them like virtually often and never have met them in person. It's very strange. So it's always nice when I get to meet him and Tracy from Just Dig It Farm over there in Alabama when I go here in about a month. I have avocado trees in my backyard living in San Diego. Oh, nice. Yeah, y'all got a made in San Diego. Yeah, that's where Epic Gardening and them are. They're in San Diego, and they grow a lot of cool stuff. A lot of cool stuff. You'll have a optimal climate to be able to pretty much grow whatever you want year round. Yeah, we Houston you can pretty much grow. I mean, 365 days in the year, you can probably grow. We probably only have like 40 days out of the year that are freezing temperatures. So like most of the time we can be growing stuff. It didn't used to be as bad as it is now, but it seems like, when I was growing up, there would be years, like a year or two where we didn't get a freeze at all. And now, we get a freeze every single year. And it's usually early January, mid-January. And then our last freeze this year was mid-March. So we're getting colder winters. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, we're still getting them hot summers. It's weird. It's a growing paradise. It just, you gotta evolve. You gotta evolve and, discover new plants and new varieties. I mean, everybody I knew growing up had citrus trees that were planted in the ground here in the Houston area. They had citrus trees, orange trees, grapefruits, all these cool citrus trees in the ground, my whole childhood. But, in the past like 5 years or so, people have started losing their citrus trees they've had for so long. And just, they replace them and then it freezes back again next year. So it's just not worth it. And so you kind of need to evolve, or get yourself some of those rolling pots. All my citrus, for the most part, I got more than I thought. I didn't realize how many citrus trees I had until the other day, but I've got like 6 rolling pots, those rolling beds from Vigo that I've got my citrus planted in. I also have my loquat planted in one of those citrus, which is fine. Because growing up, loquats were in the ground too, and loquats can survive a freeze. The problem is they will put on their fruit going into winter, and they usually ripen over winter. So the tree will survive, but once the freeze hits, you're going to lose your fruit. So if I keep it in my rolling bed in the greenhouse, I should get fruit in the winter. What is my Facebook page called? So I'm Texas Garden Guy Everywhere. So it's weird being able to talk to people on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. If you don't follow me on YouTube, unfortunately, I now live here in Houston. Yeah, no, I'm Texas Garden Guy Everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Yeah, I am like the wind. I am everywhere. Like I said earlier, we're gonna be doing these live streams more often on YouTube. We're gonna be doing them on Monday for sure. Monday is gonna be what did I call it? I forget what I called that. I'm trying to come up with names for like what my live streams are called. But we have the garden party, which is we moved the garden party podcast to strictly Wednesday, and now we've got Anthony, the millennial gardener, and he can only do Thursday. So we're going to do Thursday this week for him. And then we'll do the Friday one. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to doing more live streams. I do a lot of posts and a lot of stuff, and I feel like I'm able to communicate a little better with y'all through live stream, like answer questions. It's hard during it's really hard during the podcast to answer gardening questions because I'm so focused on, running the podcast. When I've got 2 to 3 other people on there, I'm usually trying to direct, the flow of conversation. I always feel like whenever I bring someone on that I need to talk less and let them talk and rotate the conversation and let everybody get their fair shake. Cause getting to booking people and, people taking times of their busy life to come on the podcast. I want to make sure that it's worth their time. So like when I have Jason or Anthony from who's going to be on next week, the millennial gardener, I want to make sure that, they took an hour out of their day and it's worth it and maybe they'll come back. And it's worked with Cog Hill. I like Jason. He comes on all the time now. It's so much fun. Oh, thank you, Brenda. Yeah, I'll be doing these more often. I'll be doing the lives way more often. So be on the lookout. Yeah, if you're following me on YouTube or Facebook, make sure you subscribe or follow me on Facebook. That way you get notifications whenever I go live. So we got another 12 minutes or so. We'll go for. If y'all got any more gardening questions, drop them down below. Yep, I'm Texas Garden Guy Everywhere. You can find me everywhere. Yeah, oh, by the way, speaking of Texas Garden Guy, we got hats now. We got hats. And what? I'll even drop the link down here. So I'm working with, if y'all have been following the podcast for a while, or you know Jeremy. Oh, nice. Awesome, Brenda. My friend Jeremy Trotsky, the Dirty Punk Gardener, him and his wife have a printing company, and I wanted to do hats, but I just don't have the time to, ship and keep track of inventory and all this stuff. So I'm working with them. It's helping them out. They're a small business, and I don't have to worry about shipping. I'll make less money on the hats, which is fine. I just want to be able to get my merch out there and give out a good product. So if y'all want a Texas Garden Guy hat, there's the link right there. We're going to be having some different colors soon, seeing what works. Are you a water in the morning or water in the evening guy? So I kind of play around with it a little bit, Blue Sage. I kind of play around with it because, let me see. Oh, that's cool. I'm learning new software. So Blue Sage she asks, uh, here, I don't know what you are. You're he or she, I don't know. Are you a water in the morning or water in the evening guy? So it depends. So I will typically like during the week when I'm working, because I work 7 to 5, and I work like 5 minutes from my house. I usually come home for lunch and I eat lunch with my dog, let him out. And I've been on a diet too, so it's easier for me to like kind of just come home and snack a little bit. Um, so I come home and I usually water during my lunch break. I have an hour, so I run my one sprinkler this way for 10 minutes, and I run one sprinkler this way for 10 minutes. And then when I get home in the evening, I do my hand watering. I do my hand watering with all that stuff. So I do a little bit of everything. If I could, I probably would just water. If I was free in the morning, I'd probably just water in the morning. But everybody's got different schedules. Everybody's got different schedules, and it's whatever you can make work. I mean, people that can water in the morning do it. If people water in the evening, do that. Jorge waters in the middle of the day, and he said it's fine. So I haven't seen any bad results with it. If it got to a certain point, I'd water twice a day, honestly, because it's so bad right now. But we actually had a really good. We actually talked about this the other day. I forget who I was talking about it with, but we talked about timing of the garden, like timing your garden. Trying to grow stuff that not supposed to be growing right now. If you're trying to grow tomatoes right now, you're probably not going to be having much fun. You're going to be using a lot of fertilizer, you're going to be using a lot of water, unless you're like under a shade cloth or in a greenhouse, it's got a bunch of ventilation in the shade and stuff like that. You're best just doing the tomatoes in early spring and late fall. Like I'll be starting my tomato seeds for the fall garden coming when I come back from Alabama. So around mid-September is when I'll start my tomato seeds for the fall, because it's just too hot right now. And so I think even Gardening with Des, she talks about this is, it's almost better just to go ahead and pull the stuff up that looks terrible and not waste as much water on these plants that aren't going to make it. So like, that's why, I pulled most of my tomatoes up already. My squash did not survive the hurricane. My squash did not survive the hurricane. I do still have some peppers. But like really, but what is doing really well is cucumbers. Not just any cucumber, but my Armenian cucumbers. The big, long, skinny cucumbers that are like striped. Some people call them Asian striped cucumbers too. They love the heat. They don't care whether it's hot or cold. They don't care. They love the freaking heat, and they get huge. If you're ever growing like loofah, that's how Armenian cucumbers grow. I actually had them growing all up and down my greenhouse last year, and I think they did better than where they're at now. So that's probably where I'll do them again next year. I'll bring them back over to the greenhouse and let them climb on my shade cloth. But if you want to grow some cucumbers in the middle of the summer, like now, right now, I would highly recommend those Armenian striped cucumbers. They are awesome. The cucumbers will get huge. I mean, they'll get like 3 foot long. Obviously, you don't want to let them get that long, but they're delicious. I think they're really good. They make really good pickles. A lot of people say like cucumbers that are harvested right now, they've been grown in the heat, taste bitter. Not the Armenian cucumbers. They're delicious. They are delicious. My goodness. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, so I think this weekend we're gonna focus on doing some transplanting with. Oh, thank you, Blue Sage. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're gonna be doing some transplanting with certain things. I'm only gonna be transplanting some tropical stuff. I need to go through I got my old greenhouse turned into my propagation shack, which is kind of in the part of the yard that doesn't get a lot of sun anyway. But I put the old greenhouse there and I put a shade cloth over it, so it's getting even less sun. And that's where kind of all my propagations, my fig trees, And right before Hurricane Beryl came, I did a bunch of pomegranates. I got two pomegranates right over here against the fence, and I was worried that when the wind came in, that it was going to bang that pomegranate tree up against my fence and knock it down. So what I did is I went ahead and trimmed it like crazy right before the hurricane, and I propagated them, put them in pots, and I tell you what, those are taking off. It's been a little over a month and a half, and I would say most of those pomegranates, and I didn't do little ones this time. I did them. They're probably all every bit of like 2.5 foot long. They're probably 5 feet tall now, most of them. Any bug tips for this time of the year? Yeah, see, and that's another thing with the heat. That's another thing with the heat this time of year. Trying to grow certain things is the pest pressure is rough. So right now I'm doing a weekly treatment of neem oil, but I'm doing it really, really late in the evening. So like, say this, if I look at my phone and I see what time the sun is setting, and it says 7:15, that means I'm spraying my garden at like 7:10, right as it's getting dark. Some people don't like spraying neem oil. It is approved for organic gardening, and I have very little issues with like affecting pollinators. Like it's not hurting the bees in my garden or anything like that. So I do a weekly treatment of neem oil, and that's it's neem oil, but it's made by Bonide. It's called uh, Neem Max, so it's cold pressed neem oil. Um, and it's really good stuff. It's really good stuff. I do it about once a week, and it helps with like powdery mildew. It'll help against aphids. It'll help prevent squash vine borers and squash bugs. It does a lot. It's supposed to help with these aphids and whiteflies I got right now. You don't want to spray, like there's parts of my yard where I don't spray anything, like where my passion vine is and my milkweed. I don't spray anything over in that area. There's parts of my yard that I kind of just have them laid out for like sanctuaries for, pollinators. I don't spray anything on those. But I use neem oil, and you want to do it late in the evening, because if you don't, there's a chance you could burn your plants up. If you go out there and spray the whole yard with neem oil in the middle of the day, you're going to burn your garden. You're going to burn it up. So rust. So I think from my fig rust, the only plant I get rust on is figs. And we were actually having a conversation about this other day with Phil's Figs when he was on with Jason. Fig rust is a very common thing you're going to see. I see it once or twice a year on most of my fig trees. And it's really just an aesthetics thing. It's really, in my opinion, it's just an aesthetics thing. What's going to happen is your figs are going to turn like rusty red. You'll be able to see the iron in the leaves. They're going to turn into rust. Your leaves are going to get crispy, and they're going to fall off. And then a week later, you're going to have, maybe less than a week later, you're going to have brand new leaves coming in, and then you're going to have figs. So like here in the Houston area, there's, I think the O'Rourke variety of figs. We've already got 2 crops. We're in the middle. We're in the end of the second crop right now. So probably going into like October, November, we're going to get a 3rd crop, but it seems like after every crop, we get a round of rust. Now, there are people that say that you can, I've heard of people using copper fungicide to reduce the rust. But it's more of an aesthetics thing. I don't think in my opinion, it doesn't affect the fig, it doesn't affect the plant. So I let it happen. I just let it happen. Yeah, I don't worry so much about it. Everything right now is, in the middle of fight or flight. It's so hot. Make sure you're giving your plants a little extra water. If you're watering more often, you give them a little bit of fertilizer. Try to keep it organic if you can. It has been an awesome hour talking to y'all. It's my first Friday night live stream. We'll call this the TGIF with TGG. It's been a good time. I appreciate everybody hopping on and hanging out. I promised my wife we could get some food after this. So I think I'm going to hop off here shortly. But if you catch this after the live, feel free to drop questions down below. And If I don't get him to this, if I don't get to him on this live, we'll get him to him on the next one. And like I said, we're gonna be doing lives on Monday, Wednesday, except for this week. This next week it's gonna be Thursday, and then Friday from now on, and that'll be on Facebook and YouTube. So more ways for you to get a hold of me. So make sure to follow me on all platforms. And yeah, I will see y'all later. Have a good one. Have a good weekend, guys. Be safe and stay hydrated.